So there's a sound to early blues recordings and early, especially sort of jazz-related blues recordings. And it comes from a certain kind of chord substitution. It's really simple, but as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, that's that sound. And it's basically putting in extra 5 chords into the chord progression. And it makes sense because the 5 chord always leads back to the 1, right? Like if you're in E, the B7 always leads back to E. And in classical music, they call any kind of extra 5 chord a secondary dominant. Not here when it's going from 5 back to 1, but like if you were on the B chord and you wanted to go to the 5 of B, like F sharp, to take you back to B7, and then back around to 1, that would be called the secondary dominant. So I'm just gonna, I'll show you how this works, but first just here's what it sounds like, and you'll hear the thing immediately. If you're just rocking back and forth between E and B7, and then here we are up on A. Nothing different happens here, but we can use the B7 to get back to E. And now you're on B7, using an F sharp to get you over to B7. So you end up with a lot of extra B7s, right? And the logic is just, if you're going to be on E in the next measure, then you can precede it with a B7. So if you're in E on the first bar, you can go to B7 and then resolve it back to E. And then again, third bar. But in the fourth bar, you're on your way to A, and E is the 5 of A. So you just proceed to the A chord. And for some reason, stylistically, you would just stay on A for 1 bar. But in the second bar of A, you can use the B7 to get back to E. And then when you're on the B7, you can have a bar of B7, and then use its 5, F sharp, to get you to B7, and then rock back and forth from E to B, and then here's the final B that you would really have as part of the turnaround. So part of it depends on, you don't really go to the A chord in the second bar. And again, that's just like a stylistic thing. It seems like tunes from the 20s and early 30s, they just sit on the 1, or they do this rocking between the 1 and the 5, and that's kind of how the motion is created, right? So that's really all there is to it. And once you have that sound in your head, you can start to put it to use. On a practical level, the chord voicings I'm using, I'm just using a basic E7 here, hammering on, and doing an alternating thumb between the 6th and the 5th string, or the 6th and the 4th string, and then a B7 here, or sometimes a B7 with the 5th and the bass. So the thumb is just doing 6 and 4, 6 and 4, and then on top. And so when you put those together, you just look at what's happening. We just looked at sort of what's happening linearly, like we're doing this. That's the bottom line, and then the top line, that's what's happening on top. A hammer on over the high string, and then another hammer on to the 2nd fret, to the open B string and back, and then open 3rd string, hammer on. That's the little melody. And so to put those together, now you have to look at what's happening vertically, step by step. First there's a pinch, then the high string, then the bass, and then back to the finger, and now a pinch over the 2nd string, and now a pinch on the 4th and 3rd strings, and then the open 3rd string with a hammer on, and the high string, and then one more time on the B. So now I can't play it. I guess one more time on that. And here I've got the bass on the actual B. A7. And then when I'm on the B7, here's the F sharp that I'm using. So it's just an abbreviated F sharp with using the open high string to get the 7th. So here's the root and the flat 7th and the 3rd on the 2nd fret, 2nd fret, and 3rd fret. So B7. And really the same kind of right hand as I did on the E chord. A pinch to the high string, and then the bass note. When you slow it down, there's some notes that are a little bit crunchy and dissonant, but it ends up sounding okay at tempo. So those are just a few sort of hands-on things about how you could actually play through the chord progression, but that's the basic idea. Putting in those 5 chords, whenever you're returning to the E, you can play a B7 for a couple of beats beforehand. And whenever you're on the B7, you can play F sharp as a way to get back into the B7. And when you're on the A chord, you've got 2 bars of A, you can play the first bar just A, and then you can split the second bar with A and B7 to take you back to E. So that's how to use 5 chords to get that really early blues, early jazz, old school kind of sound. So I hope that makes sense. Check it out, try it out in your own playing. Scroll down, leave me a comment, leave me a question, let me know what you think. If you've got a question or a point to make, I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you next time.